Good morning, folks. This is Ryan Velasquez, and you're listening to the Front Row Podcast on FrontRowReservation.com. It is Tuesday, September 13th, 2016. Week 1 of the NFL is officially over. Week 2 of college football has been over. But we're right back in the thick of the best time of the year, in my humble opinion. I imagine those of you who are loyal listeners have noticed that it's been a little while since the last podcast. Pretty sure April was the last one I posted. But now that we're kind of getting back into rhythm here as far as football season is concerned, I'm going to be doing one of these a week every Tuesday. Probably going to be recording in the morning, so it should be up sometime mid-afternoon, I would imagine, at the very latest. I'm in the process of getting another microphone so that I can have some other people on here with me. Got a nice list of guests lined up, so it should be fun. The banter should be a nice change of pace as opposed to just listening to me ramble on and on about whatever opinions I've got on the day. But that's what you get today, and so here we go. We've got as far as week 1 goes. I thought we got everything that we could handle in the NFL. Probably not along the same lines as what we saw in college football last weekend, but a lot of close games across the board. Starting Thursday night with the Broncos and the Panthers, and then we had a bunch of them on Sunday. Not so much Monday night, but a lot of good games on Sunday. So, based on what I'm seeing on social media, it looks like many of you have settled into the usual overblown reaction that comes from a week 1 loss, which obviously in most cases doesn't translate into a whole lot. But I think there are a few teams that need to be on the lookout. We're going to talk about those. Going to talk about some college football, especially South Carolina. They losing Saturday night to Mississippi State. Did not play particularly well on either side of the line of scrimmage. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit. But first, we are going to start off with a look at our friends in New England. If there's any game out of the bunch that we just saw over the last few days that I feel like indicates anything as far as the long term for this season is concerned, I think that's the one right there. New England going down to Arizona. No Tom Brady, no Gronk, no Nate Solder on the offensive line. Rob Ninkovich is suspended. Who else did they have out? I mean, that whole offensive line has gone through several changes this offseason. Goes down to Arizona, who's probably one of the 5 best teams in the league right now. And Jimmy Garoppolo, first career start, just looked as comfortable as can be. And the Patriots somehow come away with a win. It shouldn't surprise anybody at this point, but good grief. It's really, I hope that all of you out there that follow sports as closely as I do, love them or not, I hope you appreciate what the Patriots have done over the last 15 years with Bill Belichick running that show down there. Obviously, Tom Brady's been a big part of that as well. But I don't think there's any question that we're watching the best to ever coach in the history of the league from a long-term standpoint, from a longevity angle there. It's not even close. And year in and year out, the personnel changes that roster has gone through, and to continue to just churn out 10-win seasons, winning division titles, it's incredible. And I don't think that Belichick gets enough credit from the masses, from the normal people, that he deserves. Between what he's doing in New England and what Nick Saban's doing in Alabama, we are living through the very best that these two sports have ever seen. There's no question about it. as far as long-term success is concerned. The Patriots. For those of you who don't have a sports almanac sitting in front of you, I want you to wrap your mind around these numbers right here. In Since 2001, which was the first year that Brady took over, the Patriots have won 10 or more games 14 times. They've won their division 13 times. They've played in 10 AFC championship games, which, I mean, think about that one right there. That's just in a 15-year span. They've played in the AFC championship 10 times. Think of how many teams in the AFC have never even gotten there once. That's 10 times in 15 years. They've won the AFC championship 6 times, and they've won 4 Super Bowls. And right now they are playing without the best player in franchise history. They're the most valuable player in the league that doesn't play quarterback. And they just went on the road and beat one of the best teams in the league, one of the best coaches in the league in Bruce Arians. And that's taken a backseat rather to a lot of the other more minor storylines, in my opinion, that are going on in the league right now. It's really astounding, and like I said, love them or hate them, it's really incredible just to see this continue to happen. This level of success for one franchise in an era where everybody's dealing with the same salary cap, free agency, 32 teams in the league. To go on a run like that for 15 years and then open the season with a win like that, it's just, it's incredible. So that was the story of the weekend to me. But to go deeper into that, I want all of you to keep a very close eye on the Jimmy Garoppolo situation because this is where things could really begin to shape up for the offseason in a way that most of us probably never imagined they would going into this season. Those of you that have followed football over the last 15 years, followed the Patriots run, have probably have a clear understanding on the way Belichick does business, as far as the handling of veteran players, big name players, that kind of thing. Once they start getting a little bit older, and it's we've seen little discussions over the past few years about what's going to happen when Brady reaches that point, gets into that category himself, and even though I would be amazed if his status as the starting quarterback is affected at all at any point during this season. Go ahead and put a little bookmark on this spring, because if we could see some serious changes, some very unexpected changes out of New England coming up here very soon. Depending on how Garoppolo plays over the next 3 games. Because if he keeps playing the way he did last night, not out of this world great, but very good enough to win a football game in Arizona, then it's going to be, we might be looking at the end of Brady's time in New England. That doesn't necessarily mean he's going to retire, but if he somehow goes 4-0 and keeps playing like he did last night, the Patriots are going to be looking at quite the situation in the spring. Because keep in mind, Brady is 39 years old, just turned 39 about a month ago. So he'll be 40 when 2017 kicks off. I think he's got, off the top of my head, I want to say his contract runs through the year 2020. So he's not going to be a free agent anytime soon. But Garoppolo is looking at unrestricted free agency coming up in 2018. And based on the market for a quarterback right now, a quarterback capable of starting, look at what Brock Osweiler just got paid after playing 7 games, starting 7 games. I think he won 4 of those, maybe 5 off the top of my head. And he got handed what was it, 75 million over 4 years, like 37 million guaranteed. If Garoppolo does this, keeps playing the way he did last night, he's going to be in line for that kind of payday. And Belichick, being the long-term thinker that he is, he's not going to let a young starting quarterback get away from his franchise. So I don't think that they would release Brady, obviously, if he continues to play at the level that we've become accustomed to from him. But keep an eye on that one because he's definitely going to garner plenty of trade value if he can go out there and still throw 30 touchdowns, somewhere in the neighborhood of 3,500 yards, and a handful of interceptions. That's going to be a situation to look at because if you look back at the list of veterans the Patriots have gotten rid of over the past 15 years, whether it's Vince Wilfork, Vrabel, they traded Randy Moss. Who else? They didn't overpay to keep Darrelle Revis. I mean, they just time and time again, they don't sign veteran guys to bad contracts when they're past their prime. Which, even though Brady's still very good, I think we can all agree that he's not quite what he was back in, say, 2010. So it's early. We got a long season ahead of us. We still got 3 more games with Garoppolo under center before Brady comes back. But if he keeps playing like he did last night, I'm going to go ahead and predict right now that Tom Brady is going to get traded in the spring, or at least shopped around. So go ahead and start trying to wrap your mind around that one. Because that's just the way Belichick does things. That's the reason that the Patriots have enjoyed as much success as they have for this long. And I think that I really think that's the direction they're going to head if things continue to go in the direction they're going after one game. But that was my biggest takeaway from the weekend. Like I said, most of the overreactions that we've seen so far have indeed just been overreactions. I think the New York Jets are still going to be fine. I think Jacksonville's still going to be a good team. I think Jacksonville's still going to win the division, the AFC South, actually. The only 2 teams out of the bunch that I think really need to be concerned after what we've seen. And I wrote about most of this, including the Brady speculation, in the column that I posted yesterday. If you haven't had a chance to read it, it's probably listed directly below this podcast on the homepage at Front Row Reservation. But the only 2 teams that I think are in serious trouble right now are the Los Angeles Rams and the Seattle Seahawks. I think the Rams are their offense there's no question that they're looking at the worst offensive personnel in the entire league right now, and that's going to be a big time problem going forward for that team. You got little hints of this coming watching Hard Knocks this offseason. But good grief, did that look bad last night? Poor Todd Gurley, man. He's going to be. I can't imagine that every opposing defense that they face over the course of the season isn't going to stack the box with 8 or 9 guys and just dare poor Case Keenum to throw the football to Kenny Britt or Tavon Austin or whatever other mediocre wide receiver they've got lined up out there. It's bad for the Los Angeles Rams. Poor LA, first season with these guys. I don't think it's going to be pretty. I was optimistic that Jared Goff would be able to step in to the starting role right away, just going into the camp. Based on everything that I'd seen and read about him over the offseason, he appeared to be the most NFL-ready guy coming out of the draft. But they're looking at a big problem if he's not even good enough to dress out for the first game when he's inactive. When your number one pick is inactive for the first game, that's definitely not the right way to kick things off. So I think the Rams are in big time trouble. I don't think that there's any question about that. I think one game is enough to go ahead and write them off for a playoff run at this point. So and the Seahawks, their offensive problems are not nearly as severe, but that offensive line is going to be tough to tough to cover up. Going to be tough to put lipstick on that pig, as they say. Um, I like Kristen Michael and Thomas Rawls. I think they're both capable backs. Rawls was great last year. Michael had a very good preseason. Um, so they've got talent at least. That's the problem the Rams have everywhere but running back on offense. The Seahawks have plenty of it everywhere but the offensive line. But if they keep playing like that against some of these guys that are, the Dolphins aren't. I mean, they're better on defense this year, but they're not at the same level as most of the teams that Seattle's going to have to deal with in the NFC. But if they can't stop the Dolphins, if they can't protect Russell Wilson against those guys, can't make any running lanes against in that matchup at home, what are they going to do against? They got to play Arizona twice. They got to play Minnesota. Got to play the Panthers again. It could be a long road for Seattle, and especially if Russell Wilson can't stay healthy. He's dealing with an ankle injury right now. We'll see how severe it is as the week goes on, but that was not a good look for Seattle in Week 1 on the offensive side of the ball. Obviously, their defense is still one of the best in the league, but they're going to have to figure out how to score some points. Otherwise, they are going to be really pushing it just to make a wild card, make one of the wild card spots in the NFC. So yeah, those are the two bad performances that jumped out at me the most this weekend. The two that I think are the most alarming of the bunch. But like I said, I think the Jets are going to be fine. I think Washington's still the best team in the NFC East. I think Jacksonville is still the best team in the AFC South, and they played pretty well. They only lost by 4 points to a Green Bay team that I think is going to win the NFC. So I think the Jaguars are going to be in good shape. But overall, really, really good lineup of games in Week 1 for the most part there. So it's nice to have NFL football back in our lives. College, obviously a little bit slower weekend than what we got in Week 1. Which that's going to happen. You're not going to get you got to fit in those 1AA or lower level D1 teams in there for the big boys at some point, and I'd much rather get most of those out of the way this weekend. If you're really the only good national game this week was or high profile one was Tennessee Virginia Tech, which didn't end up being close at all. But if you read my college football column I posted Sunday, which you can find on the homepage at frontrowreservation.com if you haven't read it yet, I talked about South Carolina's loss against Mississippi State, which if you've been paying attention to this roster and just the depth level, especially on the defensive side of the ball, it shouldn't come as a big surprise to you that they played the way that they did on Saturday. I know most of the USC fans down here in the Southeast, after watching the Vanderbilt game, which was a very pleasant surprise. I know that was enough to get most of you drinking the Kool-Aid a little bit too early on how well this team was going to do playing 2 straight road games, especially against a team as tough up front as Mississippi State is. Look, it's going to take some time for this roster to be able to develop any sort of consistency, especially on the offensive line and the defensive line. You gotta be patient. you got to be patient with the process that Will Muschamp and these guys are going through to rebuild this team. Um, it's gonna be hard to win football games the rest of the way. I'll be surprised if they, outside of Missouri at home, I will be surprised if they win another conference game, and that includes playing at Kentucky in 2 weeks. Kentucky's obviously not good, but this defense just does not have a whole lot of bodies, not a lot of talented ones, period. But just a depth concern, especially in the secondary. They just don't have a whole lot of options to work with, and that's going to take time. That's why they got to keep recruiting the way that they've been recruiting over the last few weeks. So go ahead and make peace with with the notion that South Carolina is not going to win very many football games this season. But they've got a very good young freshman class. I thought Brandon McElwain looked very sharp in the second half. Both of those two scoring drives, I thought he looked very comfortable for an 18-year-old playing his second college football game ever. I think they're going to have to figure out how to implement another running back into that offense to give A.J. Turner a little bit of a spell at some point very soon. I like A.J. Turner a lot, but that's a true freshman who's taken just about every single carry, every single game so far. Return and kickoffs, they got to figure out whether it's David Williams or somebody else in that depth chart. They're going to have to, I think they're going to have to start mixing in some other backs just to give him, keep him from getting injured early on. But I like what I've seen out of Turner. Brian Edwards is going to be very good, I think. Even though he wasn't as involved this week as he was at Vanderbilt. The key this year is just to get these young guys up to speed, get these guys in a place where they can be comfortable in starting roles next season, and then just keep recruiting from there. They've got a very good class lined up already. Obviously, we're going to see some changes there. I think Rivals has them. Last time I checked, Rivals.com had the Gamecocks ranked number 8 nationally, which, there's a lot of guys out there, a lot of 5-star recruits who are still undecided on where they're going to go. So those rankings are going to shift significantly between now and February. But if they can keep this class that they've got at the moment in line, then next season – you might be looking at a realistic chance at going back to a bowl game. But be patient, people. Be patient with this process. There's going to be a lot of frustrating Saturdays between now and in early December for this team, which is that's just what happens when your recruiting falls off a cliff and your old head coach decides to leave in the middle of the season. But they'll get there. I think Will Muschamp is a much better option than most of you thought he was going to be when they hired him last December. So it's just you got to be patient. You got to give it time. I think by the end of next season we'll have a much better idea of what South Carolina is going to look like in the foreseeable future. But a lot of good games lined up for this weekend. From a national standpoint, obviously South Carolina's got East Carolina at home. That's going to be a much more difficult game than I think most of us expected it would be early on. So, especially East Carolina, they look pretty sharp over the weekend, beating NC State in Raleigh. So again, be patient, Gamecock fans. Even if the Gamecocks lose this one. This is a marathon that they're playing right here. So don't go jumping off any bridges over a loss to ECU on Saturday. But I'm going to get into more of my predictions for the weekend on Thursday. Excuse me. I'm going to have a column just breaking down all the picks against the lines that are as they stand on Thursday for a pretty nice national national slate of games on Saturday. So I'm going to do that for college and the NFL on Thursday. And look for another fantasy football column tomorrow with another edition of Put 'em In, Sit 'em Out. For those of you who don't read that one regularly, I'm going to just basically go through, pick out 5 favorites at each position, 5 at each position that I don't like, and tell you why I like them and why I don't like them. But that'll be out tomorrow at some point. And like I said, I've got another in the process of getting another mic, so hopefully next week will be the first show that I can put together with somebody else on here with me. So that ought to be fun. But yeah, that's all I got for you today. It's like I said, we're going to be doing one of these every week, every Tuesday going forward. I'm sure we'll have plenty of football to talk about between now and then. So yeah, stay tuned and look for content coming up on the website every single day between now and the end of football season for sure. But yeah, that's all I got for you today, folks. This has been the Front Row Podcast. I'm Ryan Velasquez. I will chat with you all next time.